Chapter 4, in which a monk invited to say masses is involved in a lawsuit, and a country gentleman out to raise money runs into trouble. When Fanchon's mother realized that everything in the house was hers, overcome with joy, she fell senseless to the ground. The maids and her daughters-in-law, thrown into confusion, hastily summoned their master. Fanchon hurried in, calling his mother, but she did not answer. At once he had her laid on the bed and sent for a doctor. "The old lady's vital organs have been affected," said the doctor. "She is beyond saving." Fanchon called in several more physicians, but their diagnosis was the same, and he was in despair. As he and his wife watched by the bedside, weeping, he gave orders for the funeral, and when evening came, the old lady breathed her last, so that the whole household was in a ferment all night. The next day they called in a diviner, and found that the 7th was the old lady's unlucky number. On the 3rd, 7th day, the 21st, therefore, they must invite monks to say masses. Balls of white cloth were hung over the front gate, and the new scrolls in the halls were pasted over with the white paper. All the local gentry came to offer their condolences, and Fanchon asked his fellow candidate, Wei Hao Qiu, in scholarly dress, to receive guests in the front hall. Butcher Hugh was not up to appearing in public, but he bustled about between the kitchen and his daughter's room, helping to measure the white cloth or weigh meat. When the 2nd 7th day had passed, Fanchon gave his father-in-law a few taels of silver and told him to go to the temple in the market to ask a monk there whom he knew to invite other monks from the big monastery to recite the Buddhist scriptures, chant intercessions, and say masses so that Mrs. Fan's soul might go to heaven. Butcher Hugh took the silver and went straight to the temple in the market, where Monk Ting lived. There he found Abbot Hue Min from the monastery too, for the abbot, who owned land nearby, often dropped in at the temple. Monk Ting invited Butcher Hugh to sit down and said, "Mr. Fan has taken ill in front of my temple just after he passed the examination, but I was out that day and could not do anything for him. Luckily, Mr. Chen, the apothecary, was on hand. He made some tea for him and acted as host in my place." "That's right," said the butcher. "I also had some of his ointment, and I was very grateful for it too. He's not here today, is he?" "He hasn't come today," said the monk. Mr. Fan soon got over his disorder, but the old lady's seizure was very unexpected. "You must have been busy at home recently, Mr. Hu. We haven't seen you doing any business in the market." Yes. Since the sad death of Mr. Fan's mother, all the local gentry have called, and my former customers, the Honourable Mr. Chang and Mr. Chow, have been in charge of the ceremonies. They sit there the whole day long with nothing to do, just making conversations with me, the three of us eating and drinking together. Whenever a guest comes, I have to bow and greet him. I'm sick and tired of it all. I'm an easygoing man, and I have no patience for all that. I'd like to keep out of the way. My son-in-law wouldn't mind. Those gentlemen would probably think it strange. What use is a relative like this? They might say. When he told the monk that Mr. Fan wanted to invite him to say masses, the moment the monk heard this, he was beside himself with excitement, and bustled officiously off to make tea and prepare noodles for Butcher Hugh. And then, in the butcher's presence, he asked the abbot to notify the other monks, and to prepare incense, candles, paper horses, and all that was necessary. When Butcher Hugh had finished his noodles and left, the abbot took the silver and set off for the city. Before he had gone half a mile, however, he heard someone calling, "Abbot Hugh Amen, why don't you come to our village?" Turning his head, he saw that it was his tenant farmer, Ho Meichi. "You seem to be very busy now," said Ho. "Why don't you ever drop in to see us?" "I would like to come," said the abbot, "but Mr. Chang in the city wants that field behind my house, and I won't pay a fair price for it. I've had to refuse him several times. If I go to your village, his tenants will start making no end of trouble. Well, if he sends me to the monastery to look for me, I can simply say that I am out." "Never mind that," said Ho. "He may want the land, but he can't force you to sell. You're not busy today. Come to the village for a chat. That half leg of ham we cooked the other day is hanging in the kitchen waiting to be eaten, and the wine we brewed is ready too. We might as well finish them off. You can sleep in the village tonight. What are you afraid of?" The abbot's mouth watered at these words, and his legs carried him along of their own volition. When they reached the village, Ho told his wife to cook a chicken, slice the ham, and heat the wine. The abbot was warm after his walk, and sitting down in the yard, pulled open his clothes to cool his chest and belly. His greasy face was glistening. Soon the food was ready. Homei-chi carried out the dishes, and his wife the wine. The abbot sat at the head of the table, Mrs. Ho at the foot, and Ho at the side to pour out wine. As they ate, the abbot told them how in a few days' time he was going to Mr. Fan's house to say mass for the old lady's soul. "I knew Mrs. Fan's mother when I was a child," said Mrs. Ho. "She was an old dare, but his wife, the daughter of Butcher Hugh of the south end of this village, with her dingy hair and red-rimmed eyes, was a regular slattern. She never wore proper shoes, yet shuffled about in straw sandals all summer. Yet now she'll wear furs and be a fine lady. Fancy that." They were enjoying their meal when they heard a violent knocking on the gate. "Who is it?" "Who is it?" called Ho-chi. "Go and have a look, Mei-chi," said the abbot. But no sooner had Ho opened the gate when 7 or 8 men rushed in. At the sight of the woman and the abbot drinking together at one table, they shouted, "Having a good day, aren't you? A monk carrying on with a woman in broad daylight. A fine abbot you are, knowing the law but breaking it anyway." "Oh, stow that nonsense," cried Homei-chi. "This is my landlord." Then they all swore at him. "Your landlord, eh? Does he have the run of your wife as well as your land?" Without listening to the other's protests, they took a hempen rope and tied up the abbot, half naked as he was with the woman. When they hauled them off, together with Homei-chi, to Nanhai County Court. There, the abbot and the woman, still tied together, were pushed up to a stage in front of a temple to wait for the magistrate, while Ho was thrown out. The abbot, however, had asked him in a whisper to go to Mr. Fan's house to report what had happened. Because the abbot was to say masses for his mother, Fan Chin was impatient of any delay. He immediately wrote a letter to the magistrate, who sent a runner to release the abbot, let Homei-chi take his wife home, and order the men who had accused them to appear in court the next day. These men took fright, and asked Mr. Chang to put in a word for them with the magistrate. Accordingly, the next morning, when their case came up, the magistrate simply gave them a brief warning and drove them out. The upshot of the whole matter was that both the abbot and Mr. Chang's tenants had to bribe the Yamen officials with several dozen taels of silver. The abbot went to Fan Chin's house to thank him, and the next day took all the other monks there. They prepared an altar. On it set an image of Buddha. On each side ranged the kings of hell. After eating noodles, they clashed cymbals and chanted a chapter of the sutra. Then they sat down to their midday meal. The monks and Wei Hao-kyu, who was a master of ceremonies, were sitting at 2 tables eating when a servant announced that guests had arrived. When Wei put down his bowl and went out to welcome them, he found that they were Mr. Chang and Mr. Chow, wearing gauze caps, light-colored gowns, and black shoes with white soles. Wei Hao-kyu took them to bow before the shrine, after which they went inside. One of the monks said to the abbot, "That was Mr. Chang, who went in just now. You and he own land next to each other, so you ought to have greeted him." "Not I," said the abbot. "It's better not to cross Mr. Chang's path. My trouble the other day wasn't the work of any gang, but of his tenants. Mr. Chang has put them up to it. It was all a plot to squeeze so much silver out of me that I've had to sell the land behind my house. But Mr. Chang, for all his tricks, only injured himself in the end, because when the magistrate wanted to beat his tenants, he lost his head and went, shamefaced, with his visiting card, to beg them off. The magistrate was not at all pleased. Mr. Chang has done many unprincipled things," the abbot went on. "For instance, the daughter of Mr. Chow, who used to be magistrate of Chow County, is Mr. Chang's niece. The Chow family asked me to arrange a match for her, and I spoke to the Feng family in the next village, a very wealthy man. But when Mr. Chang insisted on giving the girl to his penniless young Mr. Wei just because he had passed the prefectural examination and is supposed to be able to write poems. But a few days ago he wrote an intercession for the department of Mr. Fan, and when I showed it to people, they said he had written 3 characters wrong. It was disgraceful. Soon the second daughter is to be married. Heaven knows what kind of husband they will get her. Just then the monks, hearing footsteps, winked to the abbot to stop talking. The two gentlemen came out, nodded in farewell, and were seen out to Wei Hao Qiu. Then the monks finished eating, washed their faces, and all together blew trumpets, clashed cymbals, bowed before Buddha, burnt incense, lit tapers, spread rice, scattered flowers, and performed their other rites. They kept this up for 3 days and 3 nights. After that, the 49 days of mourning passed very quickly, and Fan Chin came out to thank those who had taken part. One day, Mr. Chang called and asked to speak to Mr. Fan. He was invited into a small library in front of the shrine. Presently, Mr. Fan came out in his morning clothes and began by thanking him for all his assistance during the morning. Closely connected as we are, it was my duty to attend to your mother's funeral, said Mr. Chang. Since your mother has a long life, she must have gone happily to heaven. Only this has delayed you in taking the final examination. No doubt you will have her buried by your ancestral tombs. Have you fixed on a date? This year is not propitious, said Fan Chin. We'll have to wait for next autumn. The only thing is, I don't have enough money. Mr. Chang reckoned on his fingers. On the funeral banner, they could use Commissioner Chow's name. Wei Hao Qiu could write the epitaph. But whose name would they use for it? Then there would be the cost of the funeral. Feasts, musicians, and all the rest, with the food, payment to the gravediggers and geomancer, it would mount up to over 300 taels of silver. While he was still counting, tea was served. Presently, Mr. Chang brought the subject up again. Of course, the proper thing is to remain in retirement for 3 years, he said. But on account of the funeral expenses, I think you would be justified in trying to raise some money. There is no need to be too scrupulous. Since your great success, you have not yet been to see your honorable patron, and Kaoyao County is extremely rich. We may have to borrow some money there. I want to visit him too, so why don't we go together? I'll be responsible for all the expenses on the road, and see that you're not troubled with them. That is exceedingly kind of you, said Fan Chin, but I'm not sure whether it is the correct procedure. The correct procedure varies according to circumstances, replied Mr. Chang. I see no reason why you shouldn't go. Then Fan Chin thanked Mr. Chang again, and they settled a date for the journey. They hired horses, and accompanied by attendants, set off for Kaoyao County. On the road, they decided to make use of this visit to their patron to borrow his name for the epitaph. In a few days, they reached the city of Kaoyao, but since the magistrate happened to have gone into the country to make an investigation, they were unable to enter the yamen and had to sit down in a temple to wait. The central hall of that temple was under repair, and the county foreman was there supervising the work. When they heard that friends of the magistrate had come, he hastily invited them into the guest room. 9 plates of refreshment were served, and the foreman poured tea for them. Presently a man came in wearing a scholar's cap, white gown, and black shoes with white soles. He had bulging eyes, a prominent nose, and a beard. As soon as this man came in, he ordered the attendants to clear away the tea things. Then, after greeting Fan Chin and Mr. Chang, he sat down and asked them for their names. When they had introduced themselves, the stranger said, My name is Yen. I live nearby. Last year, when my patron came to supervise the examination, I was lucky enough to be chosen senior licentiate. I am a good friend of Magistrate Tang. No doubt you are both good friends of his. Fan Chin and Mr. Chang mentioned their relation to Magistrate Tang, and Senior Licentiate Yen appeared quite overwhelmed. The foreman excused himself and left, while one of Yen's servants brought in a hamper and a bottle of wine, which he placed on the table. In the hamper were 9 varieties of chicken, duck, salted fish, and ham. Senior Licentiate Yen invited them to take the seats of honor, and offering them wine, said, I should have invited you to my poor home, but I felt it was unworthy of you. And since you have to go to the yamen presently, I wanted to avoid unnecessary delay. So I have just provided a simple meal, in order that we may enjoy some conversation here. I hope you won't take this amiss. Taking the wine cups from him, the 2 scholars said, We have never called on you, yet we are accepting your hospitality. Senior Licentiate Yen protested politely and remained standing until they had drunk. But Fan Chin and Mr. Chang did not dare drink much for fear that their faces would turn red. They put down their cups half full. Magistrate Tang is kind and benevolent, said Yen. He is a great blessing to the county. Yes, he seems to have accomplished much here, said Mr. Chang. Gentlemen, said Yen, human life is ordered by fate and cannot be changed. When Magistrate Tang first came here, all the gentlemen of the county erected a pavilion 3 miles from the city to welcome him. I was standing at the pavilion door. Group after group, with gongs, banners, canopies, fans, trumpets, and many attendants passed by. Then the magistrate's seated chair approached, and as soon as I saw his honour's arched eyebrows, big nose, square face, and large ears, I knew he must be a true gentleman. The remarkable thing, however, was that though there were dozens of people there to welcome him, he had eyes only for me. A scholar who was standing by looked from the magistrate to me and whispered, "Did you know his honour before?" I answered truthfully that I did not. Then he was fool enough to think that it was at him the magistrate was looking, and hastily stepped forward, hoping to be spoken to. But when Magistrate Tang got down from the chair, greeted us all and looked past him, he realized that he had been mistaken and was most mortified. The next day I called at the Yarmouth, and although his honour had just returned from the county school and had a great deal of business to attend to, he immediately set it all aside and invited me in. He offered me tea twice, as if we had known each other for years. "It must be because of your integrity that my uncle respects you so much," said Mr. Chang. "Recently, no doubt, he has frequently asked your advice." "As a matter of fact, I haven't been to his office much lately," said Yen. "Frankly, I'm a straightforward fellow, because I don't know how to cheat the villagers out of an inch of silk or a grain of rice. All the magistrates have liked me. So, though Magistrate Tang doesn't care for visitors as a general rule, there is a good understanding between him and me. For example, in the county Yarmouth the other month, when my son was placed 10th, his honour called him in, questioned him carefully as to who his tutor was and whether he was engaged to be married or not, and took a great deal of interest in him. "Oh, my patron is an excellent judge of compositions," put in Fan Chin. "If he praised your son's composition, the young man must have had real talent. I congratulate you." "Not at all," said the senior licentiate. "Kaoyao is one of the most famous counties in Kwantung," he continued. "In one year, the taxes on grain, flowers, cloth, buffalo, donkeys, fishing boats, land, houses, and so on come to more than 10,000 taels." Then, tracing his figures on the table with his finger, he added in a low voice, "It seems the Magistrate Tang's methods only produced 8,000 taels, whereas Magistrate Pan, who was here before him, made 10,000 taels. There are still some ways in which he could make use of some of our leading citizens." Fearing someone might be listening, he turned to the door. Just then a tousled, barefoot servant boy walked in and said, "Master, they want you to go to the home." "For what?" asked the senior licentiate. "That man has come to ask for the pig we shut in this morning. He's wrangling with everybody in the house." "If he wants the pig, just let him pay for it." "He says it's his." "All right," snapped the senior licentiate. "You go first and I'll come presently." But the boy was unwilling to go back without him, and Mr. Chang and Mr. Fan said, "Since you have business at home, don't let us detain you." "You gentlemen may not realize it," said Yen, "but that pig is really mine." At that moment they heard the sound of gongs and stood up exclaiming, "His honour has come back!" The two scholars adjusted their clothes and caps, called their attendants to take their cards, thanked Yen again, and went straight to the Yamen. Magistrate Tang received their cards, and on one of which was written, "Your nephew Chang Chin Chai," and on the other, "Your student Fan Chin. Chang has come time and again to get money. He is a confounded nuisance," he thought. "Still, since he has come with my newly successful student today, I had better not send him away." He ordered him to be invited in. First, Mr. Chang paid his respects. Then Fan Chin saluted his patron, Magistrate Tang. Then Fan Chin saluted his patron. Magistrate Tang politely declined their homage, then invited them to sit down and drink tea. After exchanging some remarks with Mr. Chang, he praised Fan Chin's essay and asked, "Why did you not sit for the higher examination?" "My mother had died," Fan Chin exclaimed, "and I am in mourning." Magistrate Tang gave a start and hastily called for a plain gown to change into, then bowed them into an inner room. Wine was brought and the table spread with bird nest, chicken, duck, and 2 dishes of local fish, and the vegetables cooked in the Cantonese manner. They took their places at the table, but the cups and chopsticks were inlaid with silver, and Fan Chin hesitated to use them. The magistrate was puzzled until Mr. Chang told him not to laugh. "On account of this mourning, Mr. Fan thinks that he should not use these cups and chopsticks." The magistrate at once ordered them to be changed for a porcelain cup and ivory chopsticks. But still, Mr. Fan would not eat. "He does not use these chopsticks either," said Mr. Chang. Finally, plain bamboo chopsticks were produced, and all was well. Seeing how strictly Mr. Fan was observing the rules of mourning, Magistrate Tang was afraid he would not eat meat, and there was nothing else prepared. But to his relief, the magistrate saw Fan Chin pop a large shrimp ball from the dish of bird's nests into his mouth. "I have been very remiss," said Magistrate Tang. We Muslims have no good dishes, only this simple fare. The only meat our religion allows us to eat is beef and mutton, but we dare not offer these to guests for fear that they may not like them. Now we have received an imperial decree forbidding the slaughter of cows, and our superiors have ordered us to see that this rule is strictly enforced. So even in the yamen there is no beef. Candles were brought, and they read the orders on the subject. Just then an attendant whispered something into the magistrate's ear, at which he got up and excused himself, saying he would be back presently. In a few minutes they heard him give an order. "Put it there." Then he came in and sat down again at the table, apologizing for his absence. "Mr. Chang, you have held official post," said Magistrate Tang. "I would like your opinion on this. It's in connection with the prohibition of the sale of beef. Just now several Muslims got an old man to bring me 50 caddies of beef and to plead with me, saying that if I stopped the sale of beef, they would be forced out of business, and begging me to be more lenient. They want me, in fact, to shut my eyes to an illegal transaction, and they have sent this beef here. Should I accept it or not?" "I should say certainly not, sir," replied Chang. "We officials owe allegiances only to the emperor, not to friends of the same faith. This reminds me of Mr. Liu in the reign of Hong Wu." "Which Mr. Liu?" asked the magistrate. "Liu Qi. He passed the palace examinations in the third year of the reign, coming fifth on the list." "I thought he came third," put in Fan Chin. "No," Chang contradicted him. "Fifth. I read his essay. Later he entered the Hanlin Academy. One day Emperor Hong Wu went to his house in disguise, just like the emperor in the old story who called on his friend one snowy night. But that same day, Prince Chang of Chiangnan sent Liu a pitcher of pickled vegetables, and Liu opened it in the emperor's presence, only to find that it was full of gold. The emperor was very angry and said, "He seems to think that scholars can control the state." The next day he degraded Liu Chu to the post of magistrate of Jianting and had him poisoned. No, you can't accept this beef. When the magistrate heard Qing talk so glibly about one of the memorable events of the that dynasty, giving all manner of circumstantial details, he could not but believe him. "How would you deal with the situation then?" he asked. "In my humble opinion, this may enable you to win fame," said Chang. "Keep the old man here tonight. Tomorrow morning bring his case before the court and give him several dozen strokes, then have him pillared and pile the beef on top of him, posting up a notice by his side making his guilt clear. When your superiors see how incorruptible you are, your promotion will be assured." The magistrate nodded. "Quite right," he said. And the feast came to an end, and he lodged them in the library. The next morning in court, the first culprit was a hen thief. "You wretch," said Magistrate Tang. "You have been found guilty several times, yet you are a hardened officer, not afraid of being beaten. What shall I do with you today?" With vermilion ink, he wrote on the man's face, "Hen stealer." Then he pillared him, tied a hen to the back of his head, and threw him out. The man had just got outside the yamen gate when the hen's droppings fell into his forehead and dripped down from his nose and mustache and onto the pillory, sending all who saw it into fits of laughter. The next to be called was the old Muslim. Magistrate Tang stormed at him for his wicked presumption and gave him 30 strokes. After that he put him in a large pillory, packing the 50 caddies of meat so tightly around the man's neck and face that only his eyes could be seen. He was pillared in front of the court as a public example. The weather was hot. The next day the meat was crawling with maggots, and the day after the old man died. Several hundred Muslims were up in arms immediately. Sounding gongs and stopping the market, they went clamoring to the yamen to protest. "Even if it was wrong to send the beef, he shouldn't have received a death penalty," they cried. "This is all the fault of that scoundrel Chang from Nanhai County. Let's break into the yamen, drag him out, and beat him to death. One of us will be willing to pay for it with his own life." But to know what lengths the Muslims went, you must read the next chapter.